Got a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a 3.6. I have a thermostat code. So I'm gonna replace the thermostat. So what you wanna do is you remove the engine cover. It pops up, just pull it up on both sides. It's held in by the two little, actually three of them, three little stubs. One here, one there, and one here. Put some grease on those when you go together. It makes it a little bit easier to go. Penetrant spray maybe. Okay. Should be good. Side to side. Okay, the thermostat's down the side here on the upper hose. What you want to do is you want to move this cover off the front. Undo your two clips for your air cleaner. And one over here. Pull this breather tube off. Get that off. And you need to push this. Pick this up on this side and then pull it out from the air cleaner housing. You're gonna undo this piece for this wire harness. Piece broke. And then this one you just pull it off. So the rubber grommet slides into a little slit sticking out. And remove your intake air temp sensor. Push the red tab out. Push that in a little tab. Pull it off. Get an 8mm swivel and loosen the clamp up. Pull it off the throttle body. Pull it up a little bit out of the way. Push this off. And then you pry the whole air cleaner out on this side. Get it loose. And then you can pick the whole thing up out of there. No problem. Okay? That's what it looks like. Alright. Thermostat's in here. Get yourself a kind of a square pan. Stick it under here. Not real big, but about 8 to 10 inches. Stick it under right there. Take this clamp off. Take this hose loose. Dump it inside there. But before you do that, feel the upper hose. Make sure it's not hot. Make sure it's not under a lot of pressure. And then loosen your cap up slowly. Wiggle it. And then you can fully loosen it up. It's right at the top. And I always put the cap back on. Okay. Now we'll get a pan, stick it underneath here, take this clamp off, take the hose off, dump it into the pan most you can get. Okay, I took my clamp off. The hose is pretty loose. This is kind of the pan I got in there. So I'm gonna take it off, dump it in there, and see what's going on after that. I'm gonna get most of it, and I'm gonna lose some of it down onto the ground. So then I'll get another pan to put onto the ground to catch it also. You can go underneath the bottom and take the lower hose off the same way. Gonna lose a lot more coolant that way. I like doing it this way. I'm still gonna make the same amount of mess, but I'll lose a little bit less coolant. That's the amount of coolant I lost. Not much. Next, I'm gonna remove two 10mm, one here and one down below. And I just loosen this thing off and pulls right off. And you see this? You use this to bleed it when you go back together. Little screw plug. Remove those two 10mm bolts, the heads anyway. Pull the thermostat housing off. Get a little bit loss out, a little bit drains out. So now what you want to do is blow some air through your upper hose, or you can put the hose inside your pan and blow some air through there, cover it up the best you can. You'll push some excess coolant out. Put the hose into the pan, blow some air through here, cover it up with your rag, stick your blow gun in there and blow it. And I'll push the fluid out. So that way it's not sitting in there looking like that. In there it is, all the excess fluid out of there. So now I can wipe it up, clean it, make sure it's kind of dry before I put the new thermostat, new O-ring in there, new seal. and put together. Here's the new thermostat. It comes with a complete unit. I put some Silglide on it, on a seal, or you can put dielectric grease on there. Same thing pretty much. So, I put it up in there, and then I'll put my bolts in there, and I'll tighten them equally. And then I'll torque them down, but they're only little fasteners that go inside there, so you don't want them real tight. I'll put some anti-seize on my threads so they don't corrode inside there and bust off in the future. Okay, the housing's on. Got them tightened down. Remember, they're just little bolts. Don't want to bear down too much. Don't want to break them or twist them off. All right, so then wipe off your hose inside here, and if there's any crud in there build up, and then you can put it back on. And you can put your clamp back on there. I'll try to put it closely in the same spot, because if you don't put it in the same spot, it might cause a little stream to come through there. All right, I like these clamps better than the worm clamps, because the worm clamps, there's actually a spot on there where it gets a pinch area where there's nothing squeezing. That's by the clamp itself. But these have a constant pressure of a clamp. Okay, you got the clamp on. You want to take off your bleeder. It's just a straight blade screwdriver. Make sure you get the biggest screwdriver you got to loosen it up. Just a little plastic plug with an O-ring on it. I'll do the same thing. I'll put a little bit of Silglide on there. And then I'll do is fill up, take off my radiator cap, and I'll fill it up with my mixed coolant. And when it comes out here, there's no more bubbles coming out. It's when you put your plug back in and snug it up. Okay. I screw my little plug back on there. Just snug it up with your fingers. Snug it up. All right. And pour some coolant in there. And just let it take its time bleeding. Okay? Because you want it to get past the thermostat, build up behind it. So just let it sit for a while so it will bleed. Okay? You just want to make sure that it gets on the other side of that thermostat as well, because it's going to go through the radiator up to here, but it needs to get past the thermostat as well. But I do that also through the lower hose coming up. What you do is coming through both sides, but you don't want to just push it out through the hose before it does get on both sides. So what you want to do is just let it sit like that for a little bit, and when it stops draining, that's when you know you're pretty much there. So then you want to take this off, loosen it back up. No air bubbles coming out. Okay, oh, now it's good. Did you hear the air bubbles? It kind of pushed out. All right. Okay. And that was good. So snug that back up, and then put your radiator cap back on, and then put everything else back together and start it up and get it hot, and double check your coolant level. All right, I'll get some windshield washer solvent, and I'll just dump it around on it to clean it off, and I'll get a blowgun and I'll blow it off, and it looks good. Okay, so now you can put your air intake tube back on, set it up in there, push this on your little tab that's sticking out, get your air cleaner housing ready, and push the tabs over here on this side in. And when you get these tabs pushed in properly, then you can put on your spring clamps. If the spring clamps don't go on very easy, then you need to realign it and double check it. So don't force them, okay? They should go on pretty nicely with your finger. And put your breather tube back on. That in there. Put your throttle body on, tube. Get that in there. Line it up. When you get that on there, then tighten your 8mm clamp up, and then plug your intake temp sensor back in. If you're having a problem lining this up to the intake, then you gotta make sure you pick up on this side. Okay, pick it up, because there's a little stub sticking up over here, and it gets stuck on it. So when you pick this up, and you line that up, and push it on the throttle body, you're good. Then you come over here, and you push down on this, and it should go into that little stud. See? You can feel it. Okay? And then you can plug in your sensor, because otherwise it's sticking too far away. The wire harness isn't long enough for it. Okay? So make sure that's plugged in. And that's pushed in. And then you can put the cover on the top on. But I'm not done. I'm going to do an oil change on it, so I'm just going to leave that off. Okay, so remember, start it up, let it run, drive it around, make sure you have heat. Get the RPMs up a little bit to force some coolant through the heater hoses. Get it to operating temperature. Let it sit. Cool down. Feel your upper radiator hose. Make sure it's got some pressure on it. And if it's hot and super loud pressure, let it sit and wait. And then you can open up your cap. Check the coolant level. If it's good, put the cap back on. If it's low, add some. And then double check your level on your coolant reservoir. And that's it. If I helped you with this video, you can help me by subscribing. If you already subscribed, I appreciate it. Thank you.